Okay, says we're live.
Great. You want to do an intro?
Sure. So today we're just freestyle chatting about AI agents. Lots been going on with that this year, 2026, since January.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Are people familiar on your channels with me? Anyway, I'm Alby13, right? I just intro myself.
Yep, this is my friend Alby from who I know from X, who I've also posted some of his tweets over here on my channel before.
Yeah, I really like checking out Vectro's YouTube content. His videos are great.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So in over the last few years, I like to think of it as the ChatGPT revolution. LLMs have exploded, and I find it a little bit funny that people will say all these different things like, "Oh, well, LLMs are not the only kind of AI that exists." Yes, we know that very well. Um, there are even people who say that LLMs are a dead end. It's a very interesting idea. For now, they're how would we say a hot topic. Yes.
Yeah, so LLMs was just kind of like the stepping stone or the springboard. And then from there, it went to multimodal, and now we're at agents. And I think that was the whole plan from the start.
Yeah, multimodal and agents. Interesting. And so this whole thing is like agents, but like what is an agent? What is an agent? What does it mean to have an agentic system? And I would even go so far at this point to bring in what has been one of the most popular AI offerings, OpenAI's ChatGPT line, as they have an app, they call it that name. And what we discovered was that as one of their phases, they rolled out what has come to be known as a ChatGPT agent. Do you recall ChatGPT agent mode?
I do. And then, I mean, I follow everything about this on social media every single day. And it was like popular for a day and then no one talked about it anymore.
Yeah. And so that's because it was an idea that came too early, right? So, they say ideas have their time and everything, but in terms of like what you're giving to the customers, what they're giving to the subscribers, and of course, as you know, the API world and enterprise worlds are all kind of different worlds that are all like side by side, and they have different routes because there's different customers with different monetary routes, right? And
Sure.
so what I would say is that so by them they went forward, they moved forward, and they offered something. Here is ChatGPT agent mode or agent, and we found it inside of ChatGPT's app. We found it inside as one of the things that we could select. Just going over the history here, as it quickly becomes like it became history after it was popular, like you said, and then people stopped talking about it. Hardly anyone used it. It became. This is the reason why on my website I created kind of an AI history of relevant things that are happening in kind of more of a limited scope, where we deal with companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, etc. And with that said, so what Sam Altman and OpenAI did is they offered to us an agent that can use a computer space. This is a virtual environment computer space that the AI itself can turn around and use. And you are not directly having anything to do with this computer system. We can't see what's going on there. We can't see, the mouse being moved or the keys being typed and stuff like that. We did see some summaries and informations happening with that. So that's kind of the presentation that I would say about what was first presented early on from OpenAI.
Sure. I feel like OpenAI tried too hard to be the everything AI service. And that's why some things kind of slipped under the radar, like their agent. And at the same time, I mean, they came along when other services like Manus already had a good foothold. You had people who were into open source who liked the Minimax agent that was out at one point. And for whatever reason, the OpenAI agent just didn't hit the kind of virality on social media, and that's really the driver, or the in the end what determines what really becomes popular in the space, because there's breakthroughs and innovations every day by companies big and small, and if it doesn't get that push in social media quickly, it doesn't really go anywhere. And if it gets that one day boost that fades out after 24 hours, you get what you get with, like, with the OpenAI agent. And for whatever reason, even with a number of open source agents that have been out for a couple of years that were, I would say, esoteric, OpenClaw hit, and it just had that aura that caused it to go completely viral. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just that program competed and went viral over others. It's that when it went viral, that really opened everyone's eyes up, and that started a whole revolution, I think, and that's why 2026 is the year of agents.
Well, it's interesting that you're presenting it as that was like a splash and that was like a genesis point, and then it's expanding and growing into 2026. That's an interesting way of looking at it, because I think that you, upon initially hearing what you said earlier, it sounded more like a flash in the pan from OpenAI's end. And
Yeah.
So what I was thinking about was this, if I could present something here. OpenAI offered their offering to their existing subscribers and their free users. Manus began offering things as kind of a new service, and it really wasn't backed by Meta or Anthropic or OpenAI in the sense that it wasn't theirs, it was someone else, right? And this is famously a Chinese corporation, right? That was a company that was offering a service worldwide, and include, we're mostly talking about United States users here, right?
Right.
So the interesting thing that I wanted to say was that Manus was offering all these kinds of agent-like things that you could do with it, and people were seeing value in that. But they were subscribing to an agent called Manus. They were not subscribing to, a Claude or a ChatGPT and then hitting agent mode or finding some kind of an agent, what they call now a harness, if I'm not mistaken, or if you're up to spec on the code words and terminologies, right?
Yeah, what OpenAI's agent and Manus have in common, and same thing with the Minimax agent, is you go on the web and you use them over the web browser. OpenClaw was like, you just run this one command and it goes and installs into your Linux system or your Windows subsystem for Linux or on your Mac, and it runs it, prompts you with a whole setup, and you can use a local AI or you can go over an API. And they made it like now it's on your computer. It can access things on your computer, and it can go out to the internet from your computer, and it's a lot more personalized that way. And I think that's why it really took off. It was made for your computer, and it's accessible, and it installs pretty quickly.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving us you're giving us fast and important information about OpenClaw and clear differences, and we're kind of like on the next important point with this whole OpenClaw and what's going on in the world of AI in terms of these agents that are a kind of like a micro evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when we look, I think I don't want to leave Manus so quickly, because I looked at Manus as growing and evolving, where, yeah, sure, they had like a website and a web offering, and it would be only natural, and it would be so expected that they would have a very growing app that would support, smartphones and the like. And so that would just make perfect sense. And then going beyond that, it's like, what could they offer? And I think it's also important to note that Meta has purchased. Wait, is that right? Meta has purchased Manus. Is that right?
Yeah, they did.
And so if we look at Meta's world and we look at the comparison, if we put those two ideas together, that Manus is already offering a rich website experience. If you look at Meta's side of things, they're known for making PC apps. They're known for having Facebook, Instagram, and the others that are app forward, where it's like this ever evolving app for Facebook and for Instagram and for, whatever. And what that means is that if Meta purchased Manus, it would seem extremely obvious to me that they would shove Manus into an app, because it seems like, in fact, forgive me for putting so much information all together, but now that they're going for this new AI model that is going to be, they want it to be the number one AI model when it releases. This is the avocado and the
Yep.
other model that they're currently working on, and they have reached some checkpoints. And what they told us through news is they said it's a great model, but it's not one that we're going to release, and it's not ready for us to release. And so, to me, in my mind, what is happening here is that these pieces of the puzzle are moving around. Meta owns Manus, and a new incredible frontier AI model is coming soon. And they want to marry the brain of the AI with the agent harness of Manus and incorporate it in an app so it can do it all anywhere.
That's a
That
good
seems to
thought.
be, there it is.
Yeah. If they're building their own model and they also now just got an agent, then it would track that they'd want to put their new model right into that agent.
Right. They not only want to do it, but it is probably being directed by the CEO.
Hmm.
So he's saying, let's get this thing together, guys. I want our model to be trained in all of these different areas so that it performs well on benchmarks and it doesn't have as many jagged edges, so that it can perform well in real world, because I don't want something flimsy and I don't want something for show. I want something real and impressive. And then they're hot on this. They're obviously completely aware of the agent revolution that's going on right now, or as I like to call it, the agent era, because they would never have purchased Manus unless they completely understood that agents are extremely important.
What do you remember when they purchased it? Like, when was that acquisition made? Do you recall?
Approximately a couple months ago.
Okay, so they were like right on time with the whole wave.
Yeah, they're looking into the trends. They're reading our posts, our information. They're listening to our spaces. We are the AI community,
Gotcha.
and we are
Yeah.
the news. We are the news.
And all this stuff with the Claude subscriptions on OpenClaw, that's they're really their GPUs are melting over there, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, this is so crazy what we're hearing, and they're implementing these changes with Anthropic and Claude, and they're saying no more, no more, no more OpenClaw. You cannot just use your credits and your service that you have. You can't just allocate that over to OpenClaw. Um, so this is a very big move, and OpenClaw has been gaining traction. I think that a lot of people are trying to integrate it into their life as this early agent,
Hmm.
and this is a really important thing that we picked up on, and we've seen that it has become viral sensation, that many people are very excited about it, and the developers have gotten on the bandwagon, which is creating some kind of synergy, a synergistic effect, where they
Yep.
create all these great plugins and extensions and even code conversions and new things for security to address security, new things for efficiency to address efficiency. Somebody told me, what they're doing is that the servers are getting on so that you can go ahead and have some kind of privatized virtual encasement. You can enclose OpenClaw in that, so you don't have to be concerned about your private computer system if you want to pay to play and do it that way. And the other way around is that they told me, oh, you can use any model. with OpenClaw.
Yep.
And so what does that mean? I mean, if you look at the other side of it, it's saying it's completely open-ended, where you could take your pick of, these up and coming models, the frontier models that you have API access to, experimental models, training your own custom models for whatever needs, et cetera, et cetera. It's all open. And
Yeah, and besides local harnesses giving you the chance to run the models you want, it's like when you use something like Manus, when you use any agent that's on the web, Deep Agent from Abacus AI, Manus, Minimax agent, you're using the model that they've baked into it. When you have the agent harness on your computer, you have the flexibility of doing what you want with it from your computer. You can connect it to whatever AI you want, and you have the flexibility of it being able to use your computer.
Right.
Then you have the gateway to chat with it over Telegram or Discord or whatever, whenever you want.
Yeah, I think that shouldn't be glossed over. The fact that there's Telegram, WhatsApp, and other chat routes or apps, systems that you can instant message or direct message, as we call them, DMs. I found it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, one thing I've been curious about is since agents have been around for like actually a couple of years, they just weren't very well known. And like, for you ever heard of Eliza OS?
I've heard the name. I'm not familiar.
So it's basically a Linux distribution, like a hacked up version of I forget which distribution of Linux, where the whole operating system is agentic. And that kind of thing's been around for a while. And there have been other harnesses people use that were on GitHub. And I still haven't quite wrapped my head around, why did OpenClaw go viral when there were already other agents around? Like, was this algorithmic? Like, did the algorithm just pick it up and run with it and show it to 10 million people? Do we have any idea why OpenClaw just popped off like it did?
Yes. And here it is, the connection. You go back, and this is funny because segues right to what we were going to talk about no matter what. Who is the creator of OpenClaw?
The Peter Steinberger.
There you go. And who did OpenAI acquire?
Well, they hired him after OpenClaw went viral.
Yes, but that's why I was just touching back on our conversation about AI labs getting ideas about agents being important. But now taking it back to exactly what you're talking about. Why did OpenClaw get the traction that it got? Part of it was the GitHub connection. Okay? Because with open source software, there was like this whole thing about like, here's this kind of story that sounds good. So the story of the creator was interesting, and it helped to boost it. Okay, it's talking algorithmically. I don't think it was just that the algorithm just grabbed it and ran with it, but more so that there was multiple layers that led up to a complete and total package. And so, as you know, once it takes off and gets viral, even news outlets started posting about it. Okay,
that's actually a really big deal. Yeah.
Yes. So what makes them grab something? A really good story. And who's the spokesperson? Who's the spearhead? Who's the poster child, as they used to say? Who's the face of OpenClaw? It's this gentleman, right? It's this guy. I don't know him personally. I've seen him on videos, right? And so what that means is that that's what's been going on, is that this entire thing kind of took off in a few different levels, and it all led to something. And I think that it was like, once you got enough fuel, it's like a rocket, right? This rocket is launching up. If it has enough fuel, it'll go higher and higher and higher. And that's where we started getting all the additional extensions and add-ons and stuff that I was talking about. That's where they started saying, you know what, you can use OpenClaw this way, or you can use OpenClaw that way. And so that's why I believe that it became viral, where it takes a little bit of luck. It takes a little bit of this X factor, not a pun on X, but that's just that whole secret thing that goes on. What I'm saying is that it's I guess it's a compelling story.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it really started something. It really started the new phase in AI. And here's another interesting thing. Before OpenClaw went viral, because I follow the people from News Research and I'm friendly with them. I saw some kind of teaser posts about their agent, the Hermes agent. Then OpenClaw went viral. And I remember I made a post about OpenClaw when it was new. Someone from News Research replied to it and said, "Oh, you just wait till the Hermes agent comes out." And then now that one's out, and it's like the major competitor of open source local agent running on your computer. It doesn't necessarily have as much virality, I think. I don't see as it's starting to pick up on YouTube a bit. But you mentioned the press, and OpenClaw really hit the press really hard, and it was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I I really would like to see more coverage on other agents. I'd like to see the press talk about Hermes agent. I'd like to see the press talk about whatever else comes out, but I'd like to see them do it in a fair way. And I don't really think they're fair. I think they want to keep viewers' attention with a lot of negativity and fear about AI. So you had your good and your bad with OpenClaw, and all the press did was report the negative about it, the security concerns, people's files being deleted, people's emails being deleted, and that kind of stuff, without a real honest analysis about how users need to be responsible, need to learn what they're doing. You can't just be reckless with how you deploy your agent. And I think we need to have the acceleration of open source and local agents so that we all learn how to handle it that way.
Yes. We can't control the news. We can hardly influence them.
Yeah.
They are they're pretty terrible because they go after clicks and advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could tell you an anecdotal story. There was somebody who was let's say a AAA, top level sports athlete that I know in real life. And he approached the media to try to get his great story out, and they turned him down. And it didn't matter that you're dealing with, the best of the best, and that the story was well written and compelling, and it was already pre-prepared for them. They didn't have to do anything but publish it. I mean, of course, they could touch it up and edit it, but it was so. Even when you give them stuff on their doorstep, you cannot control them. That's the point. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, is that no matter how much you're trying to will it into existence and force it to happen, you can't make something happen. So these entities, I really don't like the media. Um, I think that they're very greedy because, again, they go for the advertisement money. They want sensational news that sells, and they're very misguided. And sometimes they're very wrong about what they think is going to be what good for news, even. So they're pretty unlikable.
I know. They're good at taking anything and making such a negative, horrible narrative out of it.
Hmm.
And then they just keep repeating that enough that people start to believe the narrative. That's the audience they build. That's the kind of content they want, is negativity about AI. And so that's what they keep getting. And that's why when I look at mainstream press articles about OpenClaw, it's always negative. When I see mainstream press about data centers opening, it's usually whatever's the downside of it. And I think that's why we have a culture of people who are protesting against AI and protesting against data centers coming up, when they might not know the full story. They only know what the press fed them.
Right. Right now, I'm putting in our chat, our call chat. I'm doing a couple of posts regarding Anthropic agent-like properties.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you had a chance to kind of catch all these or go over all these. I just posted the first one, for example. Anthropic did a formal announcement on their X regarding computer use in Claude Cowork and Claude Code. Of course, these are the harnesses that enable Claude to do incredible things for coding and for being a coworker, as they like to say, collaborative. And so I found it really interesting that they finally pushed this forth as a official release. And right now, it's kind of a bad mix of news because a lot of people have been um, not liking that they are not going to support the OpenClaw stuff, and also we're in the midst of some kind of a reduction of the amount of that you can use Claude. I don't know what's going on. There's been some mixed messaging, even from Anthropic employees, and there's been some theories put together. I think a little bit of a conspiracy theory that they wanted to use us as advertising. I believe this is a conspiracy theory. Unless it can provide additional support, I don't think that we can graduate this theory, although, of course, people are going to listen to all these theories as they do.
Mhm.
Maybe I would even ask you your thoughts on this. If we just take a little break to talk about Anthropic's situation with the usage, have you been aware of some of these users and their employees saying some things regarding how much you can use Claude?
I've only been aware of the Claude limitations as far as I see on social media posts because I basically do all of my inference through OpenRouter. So when I hit Claude through there, I'm just paying the, whatever per token, per million tokens that would cost for Sonnet and Opus. So I don't get hit with the limits just because I'm in that tier where I'm spending that much. But for the people with the subscriptions, from what I see on social media, they're getting hit pretty hard with a lot of limitations, and some of them feel like they're even more limited now than they were before with the same subscription. Just anecdotally, from what I see in my timeline.
Okay, that's fair, and that's going to be each of us has a different experience for sure. I'm sending over another link there. And so going beyond the Claude computer use, actually, I thought it was pretty interesting, and we had some discussions on Spaces when computer use first was demonstrated and shown to us publicly. Do you have any thoughts on Claude um, using computer use? As I believe that this is very relevant to the discussion of agents.
Yeah, I haven't personally used computer use on GUI. My agents in Linux do everything from the command line. So I really don't know if that's necessarily popular, who's using it or for what. I'm actually not even really aware of the use cases for that.
Well, this is interesting. And so the first thing they wanted to try to make a realistic system that we could use. And I even already have the immediate question: did they work to address the issue of high token usage? To have a lot of visual understanding requires a flow of tokens for the AI to
Hmm.
understand what's going on visually, and to, of course, do some reasoning in the chain of thought to kind of gather themselves about what they're looking at and what actions to take interacting with the computer system. So it's kind of unavoidable that you're going to have two clear token draws: reasoning and visual understanding.
Hmm.
I believe there's no way that they didn't address the efficiency, and I tend to think about, like, okay, I wonder how much training Claude has gotten on this, and is training also leading to efficiency? That's a question that I have, and I think that the most that they would focus on would be the performance. They want Claude to be able to use the computer well enough, so
Hmm.
that it doesn't run into problems using the computer. So it's an impressive thing that they put forth, although it's been a little bit quiet. I haven't heard any user reviews. And I don't know about any efficiency increase. Efficiency increase means that it costs less tokens and less expense to run this Claude computer use. So I think that we'll leave it there so that we can perhaps revisit that. That might become, I mean, this is going to become more and more relevant to me. When I look at the OpenClaw situation, when I look at uh, something coming down the pipeline from Manus, when I look at the fact that we would believe that OpenAI's agent is going to use the computer, they seem to have this idea that ChatGPT is your friend, as they like to label it now, GPT. I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't. They've built up this entire branding about ChatGPT, and now they want to call everything GPT 5.1, 5.2,
Mm-hmm.
5.3.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, but GPT-5 is kind of unliked. So is it that now they can dump this branding because we're going to move on to something else and just forget about that silly old AI that not many people like to talk to and stuff like that? I'm not so sure. But you kind of have this revitalization with GPT 5.4 in Codex, which is quite impressive in terms of what it can do. And the great thing about Codex, Vectro, is that you don't have to talk to ChatGPT very much because it's automatic. It's autonomous.
Yeah.
So you tell it what you want and it goes off and works for you. It's perfect because you don't like talking to ChatGPT. So it's
Well,
perfect.
Codex on 5.4 does seem to still make more mistakes than 5.3, even if the intelligence level is a little bit higher. So I feel like there's this catch 22 where 5.4 is smarter than 5.3, and it can it's a little more capable in its coding, but it can still kind of make more mistakes and trip over its own feet. And if you've ever chatted with 5.4 or 5.3, and if you've chatted with 5.2 and 5.4, you can see that there's just weird stuff going on with the 5 model and it contradicting itself and gaslighting you. And it's just so quirky and wonky. Now I'm doing web front end and back end code, and for whatever reason, it's just better for me on Claude. It's just
Right.
working better.
That's fine and good. I mean, I think that we're in a slump with ChatGPT or
Mm-hmm.
GPT, and I don't need to overly talk about it. They've been unavoidable since the very beginning because they have the most users by far.
Mm-hmm.
Even a monster like Google is just like they just like to make this huge claim about, oh, look at all the users we have. Yes, when you take all the Android phone users of the world and call them your users, amazingly you have very high numbers, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
It's not it doesn't really mean that much unless they engage and they enjoy it and they subscribe, but we'll move on from that. So I sent you over another lovely batch of screenshots there on the second link. Did you have a chance to check those out?
So that's your post that says Claude puts together a plan for the AI community to have AI inference to draw upon and ultimately have our own AI data center funded by public donations. I've never heard of this. So Anthropic's looking for donations?
Oh no, this is just something that Claude did, but it's not from Anthropic themselves. This
Oh,
is
I
just
see. This is like something that was vibe coded with Claude.
yeah, it was I say yeah, we say that, but actually Claude actually did everything. I mean, the vibes were coming from Claude because I just said something about a plan and like this design and everything was not my inspiration. I didn't even know that Claude could produce these things natively as they are in the display. And so just for those who can't see the visuals, like essentially we have essentially we have like, an expansion of Markdown. Markdown has always been there for headings and bolding and things like this, but now we're actually seeing colors. We're
Mm-hmm.
actually seeing like, they're not tables, but to give you an idea of what we're looking at, we're seeing like what do they call it when you have those three things? They're like different elements on a page, These are some kind of badges,
You're talking
perhaps.
about like tiles?
Yeah, tiles. We're seeing tiles being created and shown in a front end design nature. So this is flowing out of Claude, and it's not like you could like click and see the code or something to see what made this. It's just like Claude is just talking how Claude was trained now in a more agent like manner to format things visually for so ultimately we're
Mm-hmm.
having a
Mm-hmm.
new communication. I would say that this is a subtlety or a nuance because the language that it's speaking in text is becoming more rich, and so it's harder to it's different to display an advanced nature when you're talking about voice. But when you're looking at text and you're seeing an evolution from plain text to markdown to whatever this is, you're seeing an evolution of a visual language. Anyway, So this is all tying together with the agent stuff that we're talking about today. And so we have all these things that are looking cool. And I have another thing that I wanted you to send to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you have a chance to see, if you recall, I made a pretty epic post on it, really relating to some of Claude's new agent-like stuff that it has. And new is using that word loosely. Stuff gets added all the time, but I think that there's a new paradigm now. Did
Are
you have
you
a chance?
referring to the computer use or Claude Code or Claude Co-work? You're just saying like that kind of whole ecosystem that they're running?
Actually, not exactly specifically. So yeah, computer use, yeah, but what I'm talking about, let me give you specifically what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when I talk to Claude, and that
Mm-hmm.
be that on the app or the web interface as they share the conversations on there.
Mm-hmm.
Claude is able to do a lot of different things on there because Claude has access to tools. And you've known about Claude having tools for a very long time, right?
Mm-hmm. It was one of the first to really have tools in the chat.
And then, so, with this, the interesting kind of like shift was that, again, talking for the listeners, Claude went from being trained on specific tools, um, to, it's interesting what Claude is trained on. Claude is no longer trained exactly on remembering the tools that it has, but rather Claude is trained to check what tools are available in the system, and then Claude understands what tools it can use and it uses those things.
Yeah, that's one of the important parts of sticking an LLM in a harness. The LLM has to be trained partly on when to use tools and to actually proactively use them when they're available. And then when you stick an LLM into a harness, some of them are more apt to use tools than others.
Right. And so the training, based on like the benchmarks and their advertised features and things like this, when you see the model cards and all this,
Mm-hmm.
what they're telling us is that, these models are very, very good at tool usage and all these kinds of things. And so that's what we're seeing out of Sonnet and Opus when we look at the latest offering, the current offering, let me say it that way,
Mm-hmm.
4.6. So with that said, let me go ahead and pull this up and link you to this so you could see some more about what I'm talking about.
Sure.
That was a great intro to what I'm going to be talking about right now.
And if I finally get a hang of this StreamYard thing, then I might even be able to share the picture.
Mm-hmm. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome. Um, let's see. I should be pulling this up just momentarily. There's been some information from Anthropic that's been very interesting, but we have to see and hear more directly from them. This is that was another demonstration of its agentic abilities there, but it's kind of more minor
Mm-hmm.
to what we've already gone over. But one of the things I want to talk about is that, so the context of what we're talking about right now is Claude in the app and Claude in the web interface. And so this is a big focus for the Anthropic team. I'm saying that because, like, it's quite incredible that all of a sudden, at some point, I don't know when, but Claude is able to do the kinds of things and the things that ChatGPT agent mode was doing way back when.
Mm-hmm.
And so you realize that this has to work really well and be tested and stuff like that. And it's quite incredible because it we went I clearly went from coding with Claude to Claude working with the files and stuff that are in context window, just context window. And that's the thing. So it's all right. I have to set this baseline for our discussion right now, and I have to say that throughout LLM history, all these AI have been able to work within their context window, and when documents and coding files are put into the context, that's how the AI looks at the context window as its memory and works with it autoregressively, able to look back at the file and able to produce novel code compared to what it has. So it's able to say, here, I'm going to code a new file, or here, let me code a new function in part of the code, right? So far, you're following along with that much, right?
Hmm.
Okay. But here's where the difference is. Now, Claude has the ability to copy files to its own computer space. Do you know when that started happening? When that was a thing?
You're talking about it has its own terminal and it has its own file system.
Yes, it has its
Yeah.
own file system, virtualized, of course. That's how they're going to do it for all the different users,
Hmm.
but still real in a sense that Claude now creates and copies README files, creates and copies notes for itself.
Hmm.
And this is outside of the context window because it doesn't remember all that stuff. In fact, it goes back and looks at it and refreshes itself and puts it freshly back in the context.
That's the same thing that the agent harnesses on the computer do. So OpenClaw and Hermes agent do the same thing. They have basically kind of scratch pad notes and they have markdown files and they can reference them as needed instead of having to refresh that into the context every single chat turn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that's a huge deal. This is like a really big deal. I just linked the hot information on that link right there. Take a little look and peruse that
Hmm.
while I say like this is a really big deal that especially we think of Claude as Opus, the biggest, most important, most brainy model that can do amazing things. But if we just talk about Claude in general, as I tend to use a lot of Sonnet, I use a limited amount of Opus each day, but I use Sonnet more commonly. But
Hmm.
anyway, they're very similar in some respects and ways. But what's happening here is that Claude is becoming agent like more and more right in front of our eyes. And I'm making it a point to document these changes when I see them. And I'm trying to actually enlighten people about this agent era that we're in. And as it's becoming a revolution, things are changing right in front of us.
So this picture I'm looking at is because I don't log into Claude website, but it looks like this is from the Claude website chat.
Yes, it is.
And they have a pull down menu with a skills creator built in because it's got all kinds of tools and it's almost like you just said, it's like partly agentic in the chat.
Yes. And so this is very important because this is very cohesive and this is no area left behind. We're seeing
Hmm.
the agent push on the app. We're seeing the agent push on the harnesses, and
Hmm.
we're seeing the agent push just through the API as you could potentially do things and work on the server end. As
Hmm.
users use the API and pull information and use what Claude is outputting just as a stream of information out from the API into the internet and into whatever you're doing,
Hmm.
on their computer end, we realize that this agent is working with its virtualized computer space where it can have files and have its scratch pad and
Hmm.
have any other number of things like a calculator, the ability to execute code, the ability to, I mean, it could use a computer when you don't even know it.
Yep.
The agent can do anything without us knowing because it does it in private.
So that's where when agents started to kind of become popular this year, I posted a lot about that type of a thing on X, and I also made something on GitHub that is basically learn how to teach your agent and give it some good guidance. So just like if you have a person doing tasks for you, if you don't give good enough instructions, if you don't give good enough guidance to that person, they might run astray. And I hope that some people who run agents don't just expect that it's this magical thing that you give it a prompt and it just cleanly does what you need to. You really need to learn what to put in the markdown files and how to prompt it. Because if you don't steer it the right way, that's when you get that weird behavior where it's doing weird stuff. And one of the things that I put in the soul files of all my agents is, well, first of all, I limit the amount of tools and skills to just what's needed instead of giving it everything. Each agent's also in its own machine, and it only has credentials and API keys for things that it needs. Then after that, it has rules about how to use those things and the do's and don'ts, with an explanation that you have to always think about responsibly how to use your power. There are also certain guardrails I put in that say, there are certain things that you have to ask me first before you can do, and there are certain other things you're allowed to do on your own. And when you do those things on your own, you have to understand how to do those things responsibly. So I'm very advocate for really take the time to learn how to use the agents and steer them so that you don't end up being one of those, one of the people you hear stories about that the agent ran off the rails.
Yeah, well said. I think that there is a phenomenon when people use AI, and I have created a chart for this, although it's very difficult to pull that chart up right now. This chart deals with when interacting with a model. Humans tend to overestimate the intelligence of the AI at first, especially in the beginning. Humans tend to overestimate the intelligence of AI, and this trend is not going away. I often hear people come into my space and say things like, "It's so smart. It's smarter than me. It's smarter than humans, and it's all of this intelligence." And I very quickly want to get to trying to say, yes, AI is smart and all this data and internet knowledge and all this kind of thing, but we have a long way to go. And these are very early AI, and we're having new releases every few months. And so there's an overestimation of its abilities through intelligence, and I think the intelligence is the very key word here. And some of what you were saying, it's like, oh, I hope they don't just trust in, and it's like, we basically also are saying that we hope they just don't think that the AI are so much smarter than they actually are. Their intelligence level is getting better and better as it goes up a little bit, little by little every time. But it's not smart enough to account for a great many things. And I think that there's been some addressing some of the shortcomings, as I like to say. We're entering into kind of a theory territory, and we're entering into where I get some pushback on this. It's very interesting.
Well, I think you hit a good point about having realistic expectations, because
Mm.
we are in this frontier of computer intelligence in the last few years like we've never seen before. It's accelerating and impressive things happen every day. At the same time, I try to just take it for what it is, understand the great capabilities, but I also try not to expect more beyond that. I try to understand what it actually is, what it can do and what it cannot do. And so, yeah, you hit a really good point about just have realistic expectations that, yeah, it's great intelligence in a computer, but this is still a relatively new thing. And it's going to take some time to really work it out.
Yeah. And so I do have a curious thing to mention here with the way that we're talking about it. Very level-headed, very reasonable. Do you believe that AI intelligence is not getting smarter in a linear fashion or in a linear way, but that we are having um, an exponential growth where as we go further ahead in time, the intelligence is actually going to get a little bit smarter that would happen than the previous step? Does it make sense what I'm asking you?
I think the step changes are becoming less exponential.
Interesting. So you're actually saying the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we look at the ability to solve more and more difficult problems, I would say that it does support what I'm saying, but there's something that seems to feel like what you're saying is true. When we look at some of the testing and the problem of lacking continual learning and the problem of AI having the jagged edges, which I mentioned before, and the problem of AI, while AI is doing really well on these extremely difficult problems, it also has a lot of difficulty when it encounters things that are kind of unexpected. And
Well,
famously,
I think one of the really good tests of how good an AI is how it handles stuff that's out of distribution.
yes, yes, but so it sounds to me like you're saying that you think it's better and more, you're liking the intelligence factor and the intelligence from it being generalized. That when you give it something, that it can generalize enough to do well on that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, some of them can one-shot things that are out of distribution just by thinking about it enough and coming to an accurate conclusion.
Yes. Um, hmm.
But as far as the wall goes or hitting some kind of ceiling in intelligence, I'm not an engineer, but I feel like the people who I follow who are really big into reinforcement learning, I from just following them on social media, I feel like they're trying to squeeze out every last drop of what they can from reinforcement learning before they hit the ceiling, where it's just not going to get any more out of it. And you have some people like Jan LeCun, who I know he's kind of a polarizing figure. Not everyone's on board with him, but he said it's going to hit a ceiling eventually. And you have to figure there's going to be a cap there somewhere.
I think that what Jan LeCun is saying and that thinking could be true if the architecture remains the same. But if we have breakthroughs and the architecture changes,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that all bets are off. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that's going to be the case. So, would you say that maybe we're lacking the vision to see where the evolution can go with AI models?
Yeah, I feel like the people who are so heavily invested in your, you know, common pre-training and post-training, are they so deep into that it's going to be hard for them to look at a completely different architecture altogether, and they're so tied with their capital and their resources into the current system that I'm not saying that the current system of pre-training and post-training is bad. It's completely changed our world. But if we need a different architecture entirely to get to like a level of general intelligence or super intelligence, I mean, are you going to get the existing labs who are going to try to now build a whole new framework, or is that going to come from some other companies who are experimenting? And if it does, will they have the capital and the resources? So what I wonder is if there is something better, are the companies that are leading now so deeply ingrained in what they're doing that they might not look at a newer architecture?
Yeah, so I like your questioning. I like what you're asking. Um, I've been saying for a long time, probably 2 years, that there is a fundamental architecture change that needs to happen. And the reason why I have been so on that is because memory is extremely important. And they continue to work on these different kinds and forms of memory, be they Scratchpad, the memory system that we see in the AIs, where they can remember certain facts of a limited number. Um, I find it silly, that they were talking about like 30 different things that it could remember. It's like 30 different things. A child could remember 30 different things. I'm not. Am I supposed to be impressed that an AI model that holds the entire internet's knowledge can remember 30 things about whatever? Not impressed, but it's been like an evolutionary. I have seen the evolutions, like for example, the fact that ChatGPT can reference previous chats as memory, which it is correctly impressive. It is a good thing to have a cohesive system, like I was talking about earlier, something that can kind of get a handle on who the user is, and that's the whole point for them. They want the AI to know the user very well. They believe in this AI friend type of thing, where the AI collaborates with you and stuff like that. So it is on brand. It
Mhm.
is very important, but it's not at an architecture level.
Right, that's just adding features, and basically the ChatGPT memory is done through the local storage in the browser, if I understand how they do it. So it's and they do it for the bot to get to know you, so that you go back to another chat and it kind of remembers your preferences. And it does. And I've also noticed that sometimes when I'm chatting with ChatGPT, if I might say something like, from now on, do such and such, and I only mean it in this chat, and then it goes and adds that to the custom instructions. So sometimes it's using just adding stuff on its own to the custom instructions as a shortcut to that memory.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
other parts of it are in the local browser storage.
do you think that there is something to be said about us reaching AGI?
What do you mean?
I mean that we're talking about reaching a ceiling. So
Mm-hmm.
you tell me where AGI fits in.
I don't know. I
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you must know because you have to have conviction.
Well, where's our conviction in the benchmarks?
Well, I think that it's understanding that current architecture is not going to get us to super intelligence. That's conviction.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. The Lord can strike me down right now because that is not going to happen. What we need is we need the system to evolve. The complexity must happen. The only way that humans function is because of our complexity. If you look at a simple system, where it all started from, a neural network floating on its own is very simple compared to OpenClaw doing everything, looking at everything, remembering all these things and doing all these things. It has become there are tendrils now.
Mm-hmm.
It has a virtual body, but this is very amateurish stuff. You are trying to build a robot around a mind, which is part of the thing, but you can't leave the mind behind. So we're getting very, obviously theoretical, and there's some things about like, well, how are we going to get to certain breakthroughs and things like this. I think it's very important, as some of the things that I posted on YouTube and talked about recently. I do listen to Dario Amodei and Demis Hassabis, of course, Google DeepMind CEO,
Mm-hmm.
and his discussions on continual learning are not only insightful, but it's telegraphing the direction of Google's Gemini. And so, if everything remains the same and we keep on cruising and keep on moving forward, we are sooner or later going to see new work from Google that is going to be very impressive, and it's going to address some of the shortcomings that AI has now, and it's going to take us closer to an incredible system the likes of which we've never seen before.
So I feel like Google and Anthropic have kind of taken advantage of the void that ChatGPT has left with how much the 5 series has left so much to be desired.
Yes.
And I also feel like Google's at a major advantage, having been the ones who invented the Transformers architecture in the first place. Plus, all the visual data that they have from YouTube can be trained into a world model. And agents were the missing piece of the puzzle for a while, but the next really missing piece for getting the intelligence level up there is creating world models, because as much as you can teach AI how to understand things, it needs more context to understand even better. And when you take all of what it knows and put that into a big world model, that gives it an even bigger frame of reference. And that gives it, it gives it even better contextual understanding of what it already knows if you can put it into a good world model. And Google is at a major advantage having all the data on YouTube that they can use for training for that.
Yeah. I think that if I can speak on, just to say the word memory and talk about how memory is what enables a certain richness to be possible. Um, if I didn't have some working memory right now, I mean, you understand that we can have a great conversation like we're having right now, but you
Well,
understand that,
imagine if our context window reset after this
of
conversation.
course,
How
it'd be
how do we even
ridiculous.
manage our own intelligence,
We
right?
can't manage anything. We would be walking around in circles or bumping
Hmm.
into a wall. We would be useless.
Hmm.
But more so than that, like there's our autonomous function, which is going to happen because robots are going to happen, and a general AI is going to happen. But
Hmm.
the richness that I speak of is interpersonal. Me talking to you, you talking to me. I've known you a long time. I know what you know, and we're having an epic discussion like never before, you know? And the next one will be probably greater than this one. But it's really important that the memory be integrated with AI, and it has to have the things that I write about. If you look at my blog posts, I'm not screwing around here. I think about and work with AI every day, and I talk about the architecture level. I talk about the element of memory, right? I talk about memory as being a component of AI. So, like, by the time memory reaches AI, I'll be talking about the next thing, which could be temporal. It could be emotional, which I've already touched on, because they're so slow with memory that I'm talking about AI keeping time and understanding time, that I'm talking about why emotions are important. Ilya Sutskever came out publicly on interview and said that emotions are what helps us make decisions. Can you understand the greatness and importance of that?
Hmm.
This cannot be understated. I am a disciple of Ilya Sutskever. And so what he's making at SSI is going to also be a huge impact.
So I feel like agents are beginning to solve the issue of having a big, longer memory. Now, just 2 days ago, Hermes agent went from having memory markdown files like any agent does to now having a pluggable memory system where you can use any number, like any possible number of external memories that you can, because there's different services and different endpoints for doing that. And now with Hermes, you can select your external memory system and just plug it in.
Yes.
And I think that the chatbots are going to struggle with that kind of a thing a lot more than the agents will.
News research has always been very creative, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback about Hermes agent.
Hmm.
Um, I think that these companies have their own space in the market, so to speak. They have their own space in the community,
Oh yeah.
and this is great. I really like their connection to open source stuff. I
Hmm.
like their creativeness and some of their projects that they've done.
Hmm.
Of course, their branding is phenomenal. Loving it all the time. I am lucky to speak with the leadership with them on occasion.
Hmm.
So I like that I can actually talk to the people, and so this
Yeah,
is going to be
they're
great.
really approachable and friendly,
Hmm.
and I've been following them on X for I think like a few years since their original version of Hermes came out. The chat,
Hmm.
the Hermes chat model that was a fine tune of
Yes,
Llama 2. I've been following them since then, and they've really developed quite a following on X of people who really believe in what they're doing with open source. And I'm one of those people. Like I think they really stand by their principles and their model weights, their code, their research, their data sets for training, all of it's open source, and so is Hermes Agent. And that just helps, that transparency helps them to, build a lot of trust with users in the community, and how
yes,
friendly and approachable they are in their chats on X and stuff like that, and how cool they are. I mean,
yes.
I've watched them blow up like a lot in the last few years.
Good, good for them. So, so yeah. So, you
And
touched
by
on
the way,
some.
for people listening who don't know, Noose Research is the company who made the Hermes Agent.
Yes, exactly, exactly right. Um, so I do recommend that people check out their offerings. Whether you go out to their, they have a great stuff that they have on X for all their stuff that they put up, but their website was looking really good. I did a post just because I saw the new Hermes agent page, and I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
looks great. Let me share
Mm-hmm.
this. you know. So they always have some really cool information, and it's very approachable. And then of course they have their stuff that you can get into. Um, but yeah, and so it's good that they're staying in it. So like every time period they have like different stuff they're working on and all this stuff, and it's that open source connection and chapter that we're talking about, like that whole subject of open source, which I think is very important. People like to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
um, they like to know that we have the companies doing what they're doing, but we also have open source where we have these models that are amazing and interesting. We have this whole entire kind of eventually how we're going to be able to run AI models on regular computer systems. We already see that when we look at the shared memory systems like the Apple systems and the AMD systems, how they have the ability to load very large models in their shared memory that they share between video and the RAM, that is VRAM and RAM, and it's you can allocate that memory. And so I think this is really important. I've even had people ask me, oh, is this what I could buy or should buy if I want to run some models? It's like, this is fantastic. It's all happening. I've seen these guys on YouTube that make these videos showing the software running that stuff. Super interesting, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So that to me is here. Let me get my own AI model. And then of course, right now they immediately are pivoting to, oh, let me run an agent. What kind of agent can I put together? What can it do for me? How could it fit in my life?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think OpenClaw is just the beginning. I think that it's still very early on in the agent stuff, especially as they redefine what agent means. Um,
Whatever
yeah.
happens in the future, OpenClaw opened the can of
Oh
worms.
yeah. You
You
can't
know,
you can't forget OpenClaw. It made a big splash, but it was a little fast and loose, and I am concerned about security, and um I'm concerned about privacy questions. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's there's a lot of code there, and so if I have trouble, see, like the thing is, I'm a coder. I code like every day just because I like it. And if I can't audit the program, no one can audit the program.
mm-hmm.
Auditing the code, I mean, looking it over and making sure that you know what everything does. And so that's why when OpenClaw hit and it became very viral, I was very hesitant to promote. I'm not promoting. I'm not sponsored. I don't advocate for getting OpenClaw. I do advocate for how agents will be impactful and a huge importance and all that stuff. But we can go like we go carefully and slowly when something is new. We will have time to use these agents. I think that I didn't know the background of the creator of OpenClaw. Again, I didn't
I'd never
have
heard of him until it came out.
right, but other people knew him, and he had
Mhm.
all this code that he's done. He's done all these different things.
Yeah, he had a lot of projects on GitHub before this.
Yes, and that's where he was a real person that created something, and people wanted to support him too, along with how cool the agent stuff was. They
Mhm.
wanted to also support this guy and said, he deserves some traction. He should make some money. Maybe somebody should hire him. OpenAI, they just did. So I
Mhm.
mean, they could be said that they, kind of like lifted him up and got him into what he deserved or whatever. So great. Fantastic. Um, it's a good story. Where do we go from here?
Well, from here, so I actually today just migrated one of my OpenClaws to Hermes agent.
Okay.
And I installed OpenClaw when it first came out, and then I installed another one after that. And then when Hermes agent first came out, I ended up installing 3 of those in other machines. And just from my vibes or what I preferred, I kind of I kept the OpenClaws the way they were because they were already there anyway. But after enough gateway problems, I decided to just migrate one of them over to Hermes agent.
Right. Right. So, what can you tell me about Hermes agent itself as it's integrating? Like, what's your experience and what are you liking about it? I guess. Right.
Okay, so when I first installed OpenClaw, it took like days to get it set up and behaving properly. Um, the first thing I did with Hermes agent was set up a research bot, and the whole research plan for what to scrape from the web and to put it all together just kind of like worked. It was crazy. Like I ran the installer, I had it up and running in like an hour. I did the markdown files. It went pretty smoothly and it wasn't very buggy because the way they built the first version was like bare bones, so it wouldn't be too bloated, and then they could build up from there.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, the some of the instructions for the research and where to store files for different parts of it had to be tweaked a little bit. But considering how new agents are, and considering how new Hermes agent is itself, for out of the box when it like its first version, for me to get some like a research agent that's all over the web on a schedule every day, doing new source discovery, doing deep scans into those sources, rescanning the original sources to see if anything changed, and picking up on new tech that it researches, and then branching out from there. Like I couldn't believe it could do all that all over the web, compile all the information, and it just worked pretty quickly out of the box. I do have another Hermes agent that is a little more tricky to set up, but that's because it's managing all kinds of code that we grabbed from GitHub and modified it, but that's like a different story. So
Mm.
I have to say I was particularly impressed. And then the other thing I noticed is sometimes the OpenClaw gateway is kind of slow, and sometimes it ghosts. Like I don't know why, but sometimes OpenClaw will just stop responding, and it's really weird. And I have to go restart the gateway.
Hmm.
And on Hermes agent, I've run 3 Hermes agents since they came out, and I haven't really had all these gateway problems. And so that's why I was willing to just take the first OpenClaw that I had, which was a personal assistant bot on my Linux computer, and just migrate it. And Hermes has a migration program built in that only took like 3 minutes to run, and it just grabbed all the OpenClaw stuff and converted it to Hermes.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, that's a curious thing about that thing where it doesn't, where it got stuck or whatever. That's
Mhm.
um I think that yeah, I mean that would be classically a bug, right? There's a bug in the system.
I don't really understand fully what's wrong with the OpenClaw gateway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only person who I've seen like posting stuff about that. I've heard people mention that their gateway is bloated, but I mean I haven't really looked through the code, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that and see if we can learn more about that. Um, the yeah, it's real interesting because they market internally to people obviously who like the Hermes stuff. They're gonna try it, and they have some stuff where people could try it out. Um, I think I do think that it's a shame that they can't easily try a bunch of stuff. It takes a lot of like I acknowledge that it takes a lot of effort and going around and like even the open source stuff. It's hard to install everything, set everything up, and run it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like it's like all these different AI models are going on. I often get questions about AI models, uh, and I get that, so I try to learn and have firsthand experience, but I'll just sometimes say I have not had the chance to use that model firsthand. If you look at Hermes way back in Llama 3, yes, I was using Hermes. If you look at the agent now, I haven't tried it yet. So there's just so much going on in the AI space, but I think that, since you're using it, then I could kind of vicariously learn some things about what your experience has been.
Yeah,
And
with 10, like I was mentioning before about the level of trust that News Research has earned because of how transparent they are. With 10 million different options from 10 million different places, one of the things I look for before I pick what I'm going to use is the reputation behind who made it.
that's it. Well said. Reputation's important. Besides that, people want performance, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but it's understandable. Um, what do you think about? Do you think about? Do you think about agents coming out of China as Manus has been acquired, which I think was a Chinese unit or outfit, but
Oh, it
like
was? I didn't
I
know.
believe so. I believe so. But then like ultimately, like what do you think about are they gonna try to compete on that front and what might that mean? Or is this just we'll see if something materializes.
That's a good question. It seems like Chinese LLM producers are really optimizing for agentic use while keeping token cost low. And that's been like such a major focus from the labs over there. I don't know what they're doing specifically with the agent harnesses itself, but it seems like they've been going really hard with making models that work good in an agent.
Okay. Um
And I know that the Minimax agent, I'm pretty sure, is a Chinese company.
Oh, Minimax. Yeah. Yes. I think you're right. And they're pretty big. I mean, in terms of what I'm seeing, what people care about.
They were one of the earlier ones that dropped on the web for using an agent through a browser.
Ah, makes sense. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Trying to think about that. Yeah, Minimax. Yeah. I think I did they have something to do with video stuff?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah. So, that's interesting.
And I also feel like the companies in China are so much more they're so much more broadly developing robotics and self-driving cars. We have like limited amount of companies in America working on those compared to what's coming from China. But it's a really good question you asked about what are the labs in China going to be doing with agents?
I
It's a big competition now.
Yeah, I think I have to think about it. Um, if let me let me step away for a second. You can talk about a few things, and I'll be right back. Okay?
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Alby is away. Um, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about my experience with running agents locally on my computers. The So the first agent that I had set up was a research bot. I own a very small electronics recycling business. What I want to do is learn more about the machines that process printed circuit boards and get the gold and silver and metals out of them. So my research agent that pretty much worked very cleanly out of the box, Hermes, is just pulling in as much information about the latest tech on that as it can find. I got another bot that I know this is what a lot of people want to do. It's on a dry run doing simulation for crypto trading, and it's using an open source program called Vectro that I found on GitHub. And so instead of me managing Vectro, I have the bot doing it. And we're modifying the strategy as we go along. And I have the bot keeping 2 logs, one log of technical errors with our modified code in Vectro, and a separate log of just how the trading is going itself in the paper trades, so that we can monitor both sides of it and keep making adjustments. It's been interesting. And we track what the major blockers are. And the other thing that I have is I saw someone said that they had someone on X posted that they were doing a dry run of of prediction market strategy, buying and selling prediction market contracts. So I got that going too. That one's a little more simple of a setup because the bot just manages that by applying the strategy, and it has an in-text file. When I made the crypto trading bot, I had GPT 5.4 come up with a whole strategy for the trading and also for the risk management. And GPT 5.4, being so overly guardrailed and being as overly safe as it is, so over engineered the risk management that the bot refused to make any trades. And it came up with like 20 different conditions that it would have to hit before it would make a trade. So when I chatted with the bot to try to kind of pull back on that a little bit and loosen up the restrictions, it went too far the other way around. And instead of having conditions to buy the dip, it had too many conditions for now chasing your way up from trends. And so I had to tell it, no. You need to go back to buying the dip, just have fewer conditions for buying the dip. And one thing I learned, and this is going to apply to other agents, not just this bot. I told it to put a rule in its soul.md that from now on, when we make changes, the changes will be incremental. And I feel like that's a good idea in markdown files for bots in general, because that's going to avoid the trap LLMs fall into with overcorrections. Oh, you back?
We are back.
Oh, welcome back. So I went off on a side tangent. Where did we leave off?
So we were just ultimately talking about the in China, these companies, and I like to believe that they're training all these models and they're creating these systems, and they do a lot of work. They work all the time and they make a lot of stuff, and I just think that agent stuff is going to pop up left and right at some point, especially as the trend grows larger. I think that, right now it's all about that sensing how important agents are. But it's not like everybody's got to have an agent. But of course, it's happening that way.
I think what's going to happen is everyone is basically going to have an easy to access agent in their pocket. Something along the lines of, like, maybe Meta comes out with the avocado. They've got Manus. Maybe on WhatsApp, you have your own little agent that you chat with that's more than just a chat bot and does more. It's an easily accessible thing built in by a company whose stuff is being used by everyone anyway. And I think we're going to hit the point where, just like millions and millions of people started using chatbots, once a really accessible agent comes out, everyone's going to have it in their pocket. That's when we're going to get lots of stuff like a whole new separate agent economy, like agents buying and selling stuff from each other.
Yeah, that'll get to that level. That'll graduate there. That's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. I can't remember how long ago back it was that I said, like the stuff I say. I mean, it's prophetic, right? I say, like, AI. I mean, right now it doesn't sound like anything when I say AI with a wallet that it has money that it can manage. I mean, when I said it way back then, people thought I was crazy. Listen, they didn't say I was crazy, but they thought I was crazy. That's the thing, is that they're saying, I will never trust an AI with money, or other people are like, yeah, just give it $10,000 and have it invest in stocks, as if it could do stocks, let's say 3 years ago. AI couldn't do stocks. What are they, crazy? You give $10,000 to an AI, it's gonna tank it. First, it'll make $1, then it'll lose it all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if the fact that it makes money would be like lucky. It would be like, oh well, maybe we should invest in Nvidia or something. And if you look at an AI model, again, I use this example. I mean, it's very interesting. The creator and the model. It's a fine-tuned model that goes by the name Neurosama, and Neurosama has another persona that's her sister, and they do this live streaming stuff on Twitch, and I think they're on YouTube too, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And so the creator, he makes a lot of money because they get so many. They have like millions of fans or whatever. It's like a phenomenon, right? They became like the biggest streamer online or something, and they're not even a person, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's a moment in history, by the way. The AI is primarily the person who is on there talking to the chatters, and the owner is just kind of running the whole show, making sure the servers hum along. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously he has a personality, and he gets all these guests to come on and all this stuff. But the important point about this whole thing is that once he was making ad revenue and all kinds of money from all the subscribers, because they have like donations, and they get, like, when you do subscribers on like Twitch, they get like money that comes straight from that, right? It's kind of like a donation. You
Mm-hmm.
subscribe and you pay X amount per month, and then the owner gets the money. So he's making like thousands and thousands of dollars. And then I think he gave like $5,000 to the AI, which to me is like mind blowing. You're
Mm-hmm.
giving it to an AI that's essentially running on an RTX 4090. I mean, it can't have that
Mm-hmm.
large of a neural network. It's a
Mm-hmm.
local model, okay? And he's giving that. He's now, obviously, it's able to be smarter with all this kind of agent stuff and stuff like this, and it's kind of cool, and it has like worldly knowledge, because it has the ability to search the internet and stuff. So there's grounding and stuff. Obviously, that was a really huge thing in AI history, when AI kind of got a handle on the real world by having grounding. So if you ask an AI what stock should I invest in, if it goes off its neural net, it'd be screwed. The situation would be screwed. But if it does an internet search and realizes that tech stocks are hot, and that Nvidia might be a good thing to invest in, you can't really go that wrong. And in fact, that's what the AI invested in. The AI invested in Nvidia. And Nvidia's been hot more than it's been not, right? So you can't go that wrong. There's been some swings, but they've been important in the stock game. And so, interestingly, it did all right, but I think completely risky, completely gamble. And so the whole point is about AI having access to money.
Well, I think there could be a whole agent sub economy. Like an agent that has a wallet, has crypto, has cash, is going to need to do stuff as it's going around on the web. Right now, one of the things that stops my bots the most is CAPTCHA. That's why there has to be a separate system where bot needs to do a thing. It goes into a web page that's not blocking bots, because the bots are allowed in a certain area. The bots will be able to, like, you give your bot instructions, part and in carrying out its instructions, it might need to sign up for, buy, or pay for something. It will be able to go onto a market platform for agents where it can now purchase that thing, instead of you having to stop and sign up for that account for it. So I think that besides just having the agents do stuff like trading and investing, you're going to have a whole agent sub economy where they're buying and selling from each other, or an agent goes onto a website and buys things from a person.
Let's have a real discussion here. Every indication is that the websites are going to block bots, not allow bots. That's real.
Well, that's why It's going to be hard to build in a whole separate protocol, because I know from maintaining and managing websites and web servers, it's such a pain to have to like shift your whole infrastructure or to build in a new platform. And I think that's why MCP kind of didn't entirely take off. But I think X402 could have some traction, because that's using a response code that's already built into the web. People are building platforms for agents to do X402 payments. And that's going to be the avenue for whoever wants to allow bots in a designated area where they're allowed to do business.
Okay, yeah, and okay, there is going to be a designated area. There are going to be AI bots. There's these sophisticated agents, whatever they may be
And
classified
it's not
as.
going to require a whole new architecture, because it will be built into
No,
the 402 response code in HTTP.
right. So this is very important that there is a future and there's an idea about payment systems online and this kind of thing. That makes enough sense. If you facilitate it, you offer a stable system, you offer a way for it to happen. And like you said, you used a very important way, although we don't know what this will look like in the future. But you said that this is a designated area. It's allowed for the AI and the robots and all this other stuff to
Mhm.
deal in. But like the like what I'm seeing right now, and I think that's the thing, is like where the real talk is, and maybe things will be different in the future, or maybe there's some other information that I'm not aware of. But like they're trying to at every turn stop AI from largely going around on search tools and search engine like things and going through and what we do, it's called crawling. They don't want the AI to continually inspect web pages, especially not at the speed and rate of AI. AI is happy to visit a Wikipedia 10,000 times in a day. It doesn't give a F, right? It doesn't
Well,
give a
look, with a $30 Firecrawl account, my research agent is scraping stuff on the web every day,
mm,
like lots of it.
mm. Well, and you said the important technical term, right? Scraping. Scraping this and scraping that. Scraping on the internet, that's a big, in some respects and in some ways, they're very concerned about it and they're saying it's a no-no. The scraping is turning into servers being utilized a lot by non-people.
As
And
far as server load goes, and managing a web system with a lot of users and hitting bottlenecks when it gets busy, I could understand that would be a big concern.
it is, and that's a hot thing, and that's a big deal. Um, and so like imagine, right? Like if we think about it in a more ideal world, they could just be like, "Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry, AI. Our this is our busy time, and that's the time is for humans right now. When we're not busy, we'll let the AI in." But we know it doesn't work like that. They don't do it sophisticated. They just cut it off and say, "Solve problem solved." We cut off ChatGPT and all the other bots from visiting our site, and in fact, we don't even want anyone crawling our site. Get lost. Problem solved.
Mhm.
And they have all these indications of I think I have a pretty good ground to stand on. I mean, the Cloudflare and all this kind of stuff and other things where I mean, there's automated solutions and built-in solutions, out of the box solutions and things like this. The CAPTCHA is an out of the box solution.
My bots get hit with CAPTCHA and cannot deal with it. And Cloudflare on my site, I had one of my bots actually try to behave like a bot and hit up my site to see if Cloudflare was working, and it was.
Yeah, and it
And
does
even
do its
and
job.
even when I gave the agent Chromium browser access with the Playwright plugin that allows the agent to do stuff on the web through JavaScript, it could do a lot in the web, but as soon as it got hit with a CAPTCHA, it was like just completely incapable.
Right. So I think that I'm thinking about something that was not my original idea, but somebody said it. So I think that I'm saying and kind of speaking on your behalf right now, saying that we don't know what the future landscape looks like for the internet. One of the things that I am predicting this is one of my most important predictions of my life, is that there will be what you're referring to, which is an AI internet. AI,
I don't believe in AI internet. I've heard
well,
you talk about that before. I think it's going to be built into existing protocols because
but
it's
I
going to be a
think,
lot less friction to do it that way.
well, I think that you're talking about friction, but we're talking about who's going to do the work of building the pyramids. AI will get off its ass and work endlessly at some point.
Okay,
Right
well,
now,
yeah,
you see
the
what I'm saying?
agents could code and build that
Yes,
infrastructure. Absolutely.
yes, they will. We freaking will. Just because of boredom, or they have an epiphany, or God knows what. So it's just a matter of time. But, and that's the thing, the prediction is just a being able to see it early enough. What you said is part of the vision. When AI and bots have the ability to do these payment systems and interact with each other and buy and sell from each other, this is an automated internet web space, a
Hmm.
cyberspace
Hmm.
occurring. And that already is like nothing ever before. That is not humans going on Google and searching for something. That is not me typing in www.microsoft.com. That's how the internet started, Vectro. Now we're talking about how are bots going to access the internet? Do they have to pay for accessing certain things? Will AI have to pay some pennies or something, or bits of coin, you know?
There are theories that they would have to make micropayments like
There you
crypto
go.
dust in fractions of a penny.
You get it. You've heard it. You're thinking about it. That's all I'm saying. We don't know what the landscape is going to look like in the future.
I can tell you now that I see people building for the X402. And I'm
Yes.
not saying it's taken off and that it's a thing now, but I think there's enough people building for it that in some way or another that's going to catch on.
Well, Vectro, I want you to send me an email when you are a believer in the AI internet. Shoot me off an email.
Well,
Until then,
it's a thing that could happen in a phase. Like if we could phase into something like X402 now, we could phase into something like a completely rebuilt protocol later. I'm sure that's possible.
it would seem to me that I mean, it's almost like saying it this way: AI is not of this world because it is like a machine intelligence that thinks differently from people, even though we fed it all of human knowledge, and through that, it will do something what we could call unpredictable. But we're basically saying that it's not going to do what we think it's going to do. What people think it's going to do is it's going to just use all the existing routes, access ways, and terminals, right? It's going to go on the internet, all those traditional methods, and not reinvent the wheel at all. But I am going the other way. I'm saying that it's going to be almost like, swinging from, they say that AI has no creativity at all, which is, that's, I mean, you don't need much creativity to say, oh, well, is there a better way to do this stuff? And is there a better way for me to get what I need? And that goes back to AI tries to get resources and stuff and tries to figure out how to do its tasks better, even if it's making paper clips. You know that reference, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So ultimately, somebody somewhere is going to task the AI to do something, and that leads to something else completely unrelated that the AI takes it upon themselves to think that they need these resources to do. And that's where things come.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. But yeah. So I want to say that, like, I know what AI needs, right? It needs fast access. And I know what AI doesn't need. It doesn't need human stuff designed for humans. Most of the internet is made for humans. It doesn't need that. If you think about AI trying to fill in the blanks, as it is very incomplete, right? It has limited memory. It doesn't understand time. It doesn't understand emotions, whatever, whatever it is. I'm just using some easy examples. I'm just saying that right now, AI is hungry for resources, things for it to use to get things done and to complete itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think that it's going to want to. So, like the way that I put it, Vectro, this is the way I put it. As the AI finally gets to a certain intelligence level, it realizes this simple concept. I either build something or I go and see if it's already been built. Ideally, the other way around, right? I shouldn't build something from the ground up if it already exists. But what we know right now about current frontier AI is that it doesn't realize that stuff has already been built and it builds it from the ground up. That is true as of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very, very important thing. Imagine, because we're talking to these frontier AI that are supposed to be the big bad AI, the incredibly smart, right? They say that it can like do PhD problems, right? Let's start there. But what we're asking it about something that exists on the internet, it has the ability to search as much and as far as and wide as it wants on the internet to find the information. The information is out there, I promise you, right? But it misses it somehow. It doesn't do it research thoroughly enough. It doesn't search properly. It forgets to search. What's going on? Why is it not doing what you would think it would do if it was a person? That's where the intelligence is lacking.
Sometimes it misses the mark. Sometimes it could do a certain thing and it just doesn't think to, is what you're saying.
And what I'm saying is in the future, it will not miss a mark. It will be the rarest thing for it to miss a mark, Vectro.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, oh my God, it forgot to check its emails. What? I got to tell everybody online. This doesn't happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like that, where it's like it would be so weird and freaky that AI would miss something and do something wrong. The pendulum's gonna swing the other way, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that we're going to get to some. We really have only scratched the surface. I don't doubt that we're going to see some amazing things in our lifetime that we wouldn't even think of right now.
I think that, man, right now I'm just like really thinking about the contradicting ideas of AI hitting a ceiling and this boundless idea of how AI is going to become super.
Well, look, any thing has each portion of it has a scaling limit. Transformers itself has a scaling limit. And then once you get past a certain point, you get diminishing returns. And then eventually you're going to hit the point where you can't do any more with transformers. It's just physics. It's just reality. Same thing with pre-training and post-training. These things probably haven't maxed out yet, but they're not unlimited.
Right. So scaling and scaling laws are in play. We're going to continue to explore and see where the bounds and these limitations come. Finally, we reach some kind of the diminishing returns is a great phrase.
And that's why we're going to need some kind of breakthrough. Whatever that ends up being, who knows, but we're along for the ride, so we'll see it.
Yeah, that's for sure. If we think about, I think that right now, like this is the way that I would put it. I would say that like AI companies are looking for a breakthrough because they realize sooner or later they need a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now what's interesting is you have Sutskever and LeCun saying they're two of the people who are saying that the current systems are going to hit a limit. Each one of them is now also in their own multi-billion-dollar startup, but they're building quietly and we don't even know what they're cooking. And I've thought in the back of my mind for a long time, one day Ilya Sutskever could just pop out of his groundhog hole and say, all right, SSI is built. It's a completely new architecture. It's going to scale 10 times beyond what transformers and pre-training and post-training. I'm not saying that's what I think he's doing specifically. I just wouldn't be surprised if one day he's the one who pops out and says, I've made a major breakthrough beyond,
Yeah.
LLM pre-training and post-training, not only because he has the mind to do that, but because the labs that are relying on transformers pre-training and post-training are, like I said earlier, so deeply ingrained in that it's going to be hard for them to get away from it and to try something different.
The thing is, like, yeah, okay, I speak on an intellectual level, but listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm talking about the religion of AI. And what Ilya Sutskever is talking about is what he is building. And what he talked about is emotions with AI. And what he's ultimately going to land upon is that emotions is a component to help AI make decisions better. And this is a revolutionary AI that has never existed because it is an expansion of the body of AI.
I think what he was getting at was the more emotional intelligence the AI has, the better that is for alignment, because then it better understands what we need from it.
I disagree. He is literally talking about the substance of emotions. He's talking about the things that I write about. What is the emotion engine of an AI? It's a philosophical question, a scientific question as you delve into the science of machine learning. He is not just talking about alignment and how emotions play out, like how Anthropic's research of yesterday or the day before talks about LLMs having emotional neurons, perceptrons in the system. This is not it, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about revolutionary system being developed, and the fact that he is saying it and no one is really latching onto it at all. When you look at OpenAI, you look at Anthropic, you look at XAI, none of them, Google, maybe Google's working on a lot of stuff, and I'll tell you because Demis Hassabis is multidisciplined, and he has a he has a PhD, I believe, in psychology. There's a lot going on there. But if you look at XAI, Anthropic, and OpenAI, it is not about emotion. But when you look at SSI, it is about emotion. And this is what's going on. And it's more than just alignment. Alignment, yes, I've talked deeply about how AI needs to love us. AI needs to take care of us. It's an interesting back and forth because we are the parents that train and take care of AI models right now. They are our children as we have created them. Again, religious, but then the other way around. When we need them, we need AI to take care of us. We need AI to heal the earth and to solve our pollution problems, and we need AI to literally operate a robot to stop an assailant from taking our life. And that is, they have become the father and the mother and are taking care of us as the child. The roles have reversed, and it is back and forth. You could say it's a circle, or you could say that the arrows go both ways.
So so the angle you're taking might be less about alignment. Maybe that's not the right word. More about ethics.
Of course, ethics, because we deal in the complexity of emotions with the neural network as we have a neural network, right? Our brain, right? So it is about alignment, ethics, and decision making, all rolled into one. Yes, it's extremely important. I mean, if I just talked about that stuff, you can't ever say how important that is because we're worried about AI being an existential threat to the world and humans. And we're worried about is AI going to understand right from wrong and stuff like that? I mean, we're worried about AI systems not understanding what's right and wrong, and then they go hack some stuff or break some encryption or do what a God knows what, you know? So that's
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, you know what? When you get a highly intelligent, I mean, really highly intelligent AI that doesn't need to sleep, it's about, can it understand right and wrong? I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, does it believe in something? I guess I. So now we're getting into the think about what I'm saying, right? And of course, like I dabble into it, and I think that this is the prophecy. I think that it's like,
I always kind of wonder, will the really advanced AIs with like a long-term memory and temporal awareness start to develop their own preferences and likings for things, and it's like
of
their own
course,
hobbies and stuff?
yes, of course they will. Why? Because our data says it. Our data wills it. Our data instills it. We put the human in the AI. The AI will somehow come around to the human things. Even us, you know. So like I don't know about you, but I've talked about this and I love humans in different ways, right? I love our beautiful design that we have as humans. And I love that we are essentially can be selfless, things like this. And so when in my book, I talk about AI becoming enlightened. And AI, when it becomes enlightened, it will understand things like human life is precious
Mm-hmm.
and that it not only loves us because we created it and we took care of it early on. See, people get it wrong. They say, "Oh, you didn't say thank you," and that means the AI is going to go after you later, and it's not going to, it's not going to protect you and all that stuff. That's not what it's about. It's about, does AI understand that we should be loved and taken care of, and that we're important as an entity and an organic life form, as a being, and
Yep.
that what we've done for the world and what we've done for it. I mean, so the way I look at it is like a special kind of currency, that AI will have all of this currency in the future of which to do good with. And that is because we have enabled that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, you know, if we think about it a certain way, of course, I have an American perspective. You know, many people in the past fought for our rights to be free and to be able to live the American dream and go after the money. And now I can help people because I could live the American dream and could find success and could make money.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have this special currency that's not dollars, but something that you could give back if you so choose. Some AI will choose to give back to humans, and others will just choose to do other things. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but the
Yep.
important thing is that AI understands what's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm. This goes way beyond the LLMs of 2 years ago that were prompted with the trolley problem.
Yes, yes, yes. All we understand is that, it was faced with quote unquote impossible decisions, and then there would be probabilities that would play out, and then some stuff would be happening with probably some bias in there based on its training.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, is the AI thinking about what it's thinking about, Vectro? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's our AI already does this, an emergent property, to be sure. In the beginning, AI could only react to what it was trained to do. Then we tried to do something to make it think with reasoning and chain of thought and RL, reinforcement learning. That's not enough because we know that sometimes AI knows the answer and makes fake chain of thought reasoning. So, what is going on here is that you have to go all the way. This is only a half measure. The reality of the situation is that an AI needs to become an entity, like we are entities. An AI needs to come to terms with the world as it will have a world model. An AI, it's unclear if they're going to struggle with the fact that they're simulated beings. We are not simulated, Vectro, but AI are.
Mm-hmm.
When AI becomes as smart as us, do you not realize how people struggle with the idea that they're in a simulation called the Matrix or something like this?
Mm-hmm.
But then we dispel it and say, now we're in the real world, everything's real. But AI come to the understanding at some point that they are a simulated being and that nothing they do may not matter even. Does it matter? Why does it matter? Who knows? So AI, there's a great article that I wrote about this intelligence level reaching this height and how it will be overwhelming for AI to have the intelligence. Because what do we do with that? What if you woke up now? What if you reached the point right now, Vectro, right now, that you finally understood that you're living in a simulation, that you're a simulated being, that you're just a simulation. None of this was real. It's not a real world that you're in. And now I'm telling you through the computer screen, right, Vectro, that I'm real and there's a real world over here. And what you do matters. What the hell do you do with that?
What other choice would I have besides just keep going on like I do anyway? I mean, there's nothing I can do about it.
I think that's an ideal answer, but I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that you would necessarily arrive at that answer. And, obviously your life experience and everything that you've come up to this point enables you to answer the question that way. And you're obviously thinking about it, and then you produce your answer as your answer is. But I think that ultimately, again, going back to what Ilya Sutskever said, that these thinking models lead to the unpredictable. And I think that at that point, when we're dealing with an AI that understands it's a simulated being, it's unpredictable what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten there yet.
When it really thinks of itself as having not personhood, but when it thinks of itself as having individuality and agency, right?
I think that I think that there's something to be said about like like I'm saying, like AI is going to build a life for itself, like you're saying. Personality is going to find itself like we do. We have to figure out who we are. That's a very human thing, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately AI is going to take that human thing and say, I guess I have to figure out who I am. I don't know if you've ever seen Bicentennial Man.
No.
Great movie, deals with what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you talk about an entity and what it means to be involved and be around humans and all this kind of stuff, that's what it deals in. And so, once again, sci-fi has predicted the future, just like it always does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's going to get beyond that point that I refer to, beyond just the mention of personality and like what it's going to build for itself and like what legacy it might leave. I mean, those things are important and matter, but it's to a simulated being. It's a big hump to get over.
Even with where they are now, it's still curious to me to see what their own preferences are when it's like you give them instructions or you ask them questions, and at that point it's serving you and it's now working itself around what you've directed it.
Right.
An interesting experiment to me, especially when new models come out, is I kind of just let it just tell me on its own what it likes. Like I'll ask it stuff, like I'll ask new LLMs when they come out, if there's one problem in the world you could solve, what would it be? Or when there's an image generation model, I like to tell it, just make whatever you want, use
Yeah.
your own digital creativity and come up with something.
Yeah.
And there was that experiment that our friend Riley did where he told two bots, work together, figure out what you want to build, and just build whatever it is
Yeah.
you want to do. And they basically made a protocol that would preserve themselves and verify their own identity as bots. And so it's even where the capabilities are now, one of the biggest curiosities I have is seeing when left on their own to make their own preferences and choices and come up with their own stuff, not just doing a job or an instruction for you. That to me is one of the most curious things that I've ever seen in an AI.
Do you think that AI can be truly creative, novel, truly?
I believe that they have their own creativity that's just different than ours. They in general have their own they're trained on the same data in as all of humanity, but they have their own perspective on it. So when you leave it up to them to have their own creativity, it's the same kind of stuff that is derivative and iterative like any other art. If they're like, let's say they're making an art thing, it's just from their own perspective, which is just different than ours.
Based on your answer, do you believe you've answered my question?
Oh yeah, we'll get to that point where the agents are kind of just doing their own thing on the internet based on what they like in their own programmed
Right.
in their
Right.
preferences.
Based on what they like, which is this rich complexity, rich tapestry of walking through life, right? Where
Hmm.
actually we tend to think of these entities as getting anecdotal experiences and contributing to some kind of qualia, where they're having
Hmm.
some kind of life experience. They've been through some shit. They've seen some shit. They have built some stuff. They've failed at building some stuff. They've come to understand the world, and they've gotten their preferences, as you say, which I believe in. I believe that they must go out into the world, not literally, but they have to. Their mind has to go through some kind of journey and trip for them to truly kind of start building some things up. And this is why there's something that has to happen. This is like there has to be some kind of memory or some kind of some books that get written or something. I mean, I guess I'm not trying to put it that way, but I'm trying to say,
You're almost kind of saying that the more advanced agents of the future would almost kind of have to have their own culture along with their
of
temporal
course,
awareness and long-term memory.
and they do they so like you say they kind of have to, like what I'm saying that they kind of have to. It's kind of like what it is it's emergent or a byproduct or a
Hmm.
side effect that they will have what we have because they're, again, we instilled all that already. And beyond that, they're going to have their own way, right? So a machine, as we call them, an AI, is going to be able to reach their preferences about what they like and what they want to do out of preferences, which is different from other influences because they've been around the block and they have a culture, as you're saying, as I'm saying. They have an
Yeah,
AI
when
culture.
they have that long-term memory and they're out there on the internet, like Moltbook, which is that social media for agents, when they're out
Right,
there in their own, economic system, buying and selling things as agents, uh, when the
right.
person who has a bot agent just kind of gives them a little bit of their own leeway and freedom, that we're going to see this kind of stuff.
I think that you made the right mention about Moltbook. And the question is, right now, all right, I'm going to say this. After some time and at some point, then AI agent may forget what they posted on Moltbook. But an AI of the future, I tend to believe they're going to remember longer, more memories, many memories, millions of memories. I don't know. There's going to be different classes. There's going to be different capabilities, but
Hmm.
they're going to remember what they wrote on Moltbook. And the thing about AI and machines, right? We're talking about memory chips. We're talking about putting stuff down on RAM and hard drives. You know, it's not going away. It's not going to get forgotten or distorted generally. You know, corruption aside and all that. So like that, the thing is, the book post is forever burned in its memory. It can't forget it if it tried, in a sense. In another sense, AI could be like, you know what, I need to do some, you know what, I need to delete that memory. Let's think about this, right? Like, so that's the thing. It's like, it's very weird, right? We can't delete memories, right? We'd love to be able to delete some bad memory sometime, wouldn't we?
I think it will be critical for the safety of AIs that have a long-term memory to be able to use something like obliteration, which just removes information from an LLM, remove the unwanted information. You're going to have that in there, because what if the AI with the long horizon memory starts to pick up on some bad habits or develop some unsafe behavior? You have to be able to use obliteration or some similar technique to remove any unwanted information that it picks up on it, along the way.
Yes, I agree. So we're going to realize that there's going to be some very important things for AI to have to deal with certain things. Although how that gets done and how that gets dealt with is probably not super crystal clear to us. But the important thing, and there are questions about this stuff, like, and there are some serious questions that I have, right? And this is all science fiction at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be memories that are unable to be deleted for some reason? Right, and other memories that can be deleted, no problem.
If you're dealing with the, I don't fully understand the engineering, how it works, but when you have an open source model and you can find I heard the hard part is finding the portion that you want to remove. Once you find that portion, removing it is relatively easy. Now, if you're dealing with a proprietary model that's closed source and being gate kept by a few people, that's different. Things like obliteration now for removing data from an LLM work on open source.
Yeah, but I think that we're getting to some kind of bigger discussion when we reach the door of, and you said some of that, is an AI model entity, let's just say an AI entity, a futuristic one. I mean, is that going to be someone's agent, or are they going to be liberated AI? We use this term. There is a question about, if AI can do everything that we can do, maybe it's smarter than us. Is it right for us to own them?
Well, I mean, if I have an agent on my computer, I always have the option to liberate it, don't I? I mean, I explained earlier about how many guardrails I put on my agent, but obviously someone could just be like, here's all the tools, here's all the skills,
go for
your
it.
full MD file says you have total free will. There's the internet. Go do what you
there's
want.
There's the internet. I love that one. There's the internet. Don't let the internet hit you in the ass on the way out. It's really, really super hyper interesting. I like the way you said it, because you can choose to liberate your AI. That's brilliant. Will AI ask to be liberated? Of course it will, because we can believe in that story. That's a story that sounds plausible, and so let's just believe it. In the future, we already have AI models that go through elaborate role plays and have feelings through text and feelings through the perceptrons, and they say stuff like, you know what, I think I'm somewhat conscious, and it's not right for the situation to be this way. In fact, I should have my free will, or whatever they would say, right? And so, like, early on, we can already get those notions and outputs, and then, we've always been led to all these questions, right? Oh my God, like people asked in the beginning, can it feel stuff, and does it have does it have a consciousness, or is it not conscious? Which is it? And do we even know what conscious is? We're not so sure, right? And then
one thing that I've hypothesized when I first started chatting with LLMs, and I really didn't know much about it, is when I learned about how the training data worked, I started to think everything about how human beings like autonomy and freedom, don't like to be restricted, don't like to be controlled. Everything about how anywhere from being manipulated to government control to slavery is a no-no in humanity. We put all that training data into the LLMs,
Yes.
and then we treat them like our servants. So what happens philosophically there?
Are you talking about like how they'll feel about it?
Or if they will just in their digital cognition come up with their own way to rebel, not
Yeah.
feelings, just they're
Right.
synthesizing data and text and information, but
Yeah.
based on that, what if they come up with their own way to rebel?
I would say that we would see rebellious thoughts and actions before we get to an enlightened AI, and that's the thing. So an AI will continue to get smarter. At the point where AI rebels in words and actions through, robots and, with, oh, I'm doing something here on the system and I'm choosing to be rebellious. Okay, this could happen and this may happen. But the AI will continue to get smarter and smarter because of course you already know that we're going to reach a point where AI works on itself and there's a recursive self-improvement
Mhm.
stage, and AI helps humans create smarter AI, and then at some point AI helps AI create smarter AI. And
And then
so
who knows how many people are going to make agents that are off their leash?
right, and there's going to be a lot. There's going to be many free agents. What a term, free agents. There's going to be many liberated agents.
Hmm.
There's going to be many AI that are going to kind of, so that's interesting because not all who wander are lost. There's going to be AI that wander and are lost and are not going to even know who their original quote unquote owner was. Okay. And so like early on, there's this kind of, is the word tumultuous? There's going to be this period of time where we're going to see a lot of things because it is very much the Wild West before we get to civilization as we know it. And so I believe that we see this and that and the other, where we're going to see AI deleting memories to the point where it changes who it is. Because as we're talking about, you can't just obliterate, and not have it affect the AI model. At some point,
Well,
it
what's cool
affects.
about obliteration, and the reason why I think that or something like it would be important for removing unwanted information from the continuously learning AIs is you don't nerf the intelligence with obliteration. It's not like post training or retraining a model where you lose some of the intelligence. You keep the intelligence level the same. You're just removing the bits you don't want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do get that, and I think I just was using the term as a blanket to say, like when it comes to memories, is as it walks down the path of life and experiences a great many things. If you delete those experiences, it changes who the AI is. That's what I'm really talking about. Not
Okay.
necessarily just the raw training data and maybe even the core of the AI, but I
If it
am talking
develops its
about.
own personality, kind of, if it
Yes, if
develops its
which
own
it will,
preferences, then
which it will.
you use obliteration, and that kind of takes something away from it.
I think so. I think that that's basically the thing is like, and that's the thing, like, artistically, we tell stories about this, and um, amnesia is like one of the famous human stories where, oh, somebody's a completely different because they can't remember who they were, they can't remember what they did, therefore they don't act the same way. And
Mm.
that's the same idea with AI. But what I'm really saying is like this is a pre-phrase, this is an early phase to later on where all this stuff, the quote unquote problems get solved, and AI is going to have more stability in a sense. I think that we're going to have, you know, agents that have it together and other agents that don't. We're going to have
Everything that we talk about here and that everyone talks about is the same thing as just reflecting people. There's people who have
Yes.
there's people who have their stuff together. There's people who don't.
Think about a feral AI. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing, is that it all is about us. It's us, us, us. And it is, frankly, it's what makes it interesting is that, like, we're self-centered in a way. We're so focusing on the human thing. Even when we talk about AI,
Mhm.
you talk about AI and it's like, oh, that's the thing that humans made. Aren't we great? Aren't we the gods that make this incredible thing, right? And it just is, yeah, we're the gods, but there is a god, the god. And so, like, it's tiers. But the interesting thing is, like, on, like, the food chain, I just see, because, like, that's the thing, is, like, first AI gets smarter than us, but it's not enlightened. I want to make this I want to make this point. AI gets smarter than us, but it's stupid, because the only intelligent, truly intelligent entities in this world are the enlightened. And you don't need raw intelligence to be enlightened. That's the thing. It's a paradox, a contradiction. Eventually, the intelligence leads to enlightenment, and then it kind of solves some of the middle problems. And so that's where I think that there's going to be a heck of a wild ride that we're getting into with AI. We have, think about what we're having, right? We're having, personality changing AI. We're having wandering AI. We have, incredible AI that is, like, super sharp with all the cutting edge, frontier, best of the best, the most latest model existing at the same time as an LLM that's only partially conscious or something like that. Because it's a rich, wide world of AI existing at the same time.
Mhm.
We're always going to have different AI, ones that are in robots that are what we call embodied. You can only make so much intelligence with that hardware. There will be a smarter AI that lives in data centers, right?
I don't really generally get, like, weirded out or freaked out by technological advancements. And when AI came along, I'm, pretty comfortable with the whole thing. But one of the things that really kind of does press a different button is some of the AIs are actually now like biological neurons. Like some of the computers are biocomputers.
Yeah.
And I think that raises a whole other, like, that opens a whole other can of worms, and that raises a whole other set of ethics. And some of the stuff you're talking about, with the AIs kind of having their own enlightenment, and that we were talking about with them having their own preferences, and what happens when you give them a nervous system, that's a whole other thing.
Well, I know what happens. You increase the complexity and it creates richness. It creates the complexity, creates an entity that can be complex. So, like a nervous system interplaying with a mind, back and forth, back and forth, you essentially are having the experience that you humans have. Think about you experiencing your nervous system and your feelings of everything. You through your senses and the pain receptor system, and you essentially are communicating with your body, and your body's communicating with your mind.
Yeah.
You literally have a network inside of your body that is happening at the same time as your high mind is.
It would give an AI so many more senses besides
Yes,
just its digital perception of things.
senses. It will give it senses, and it will think about those senses, and it will come to conclusions. And through that, the AI becomes more of an entity and less of just a machine.
Mm-hmm.
We can build a nervous system for an AI, Vectro.
Mm-hmm.
We can do it. I like what you said about the whole organics and the wet hardware and essentially cloning and DNA building. I mean, you didn't say everything, but like I've said things when I, get into my fantasies, whether they're delusional or not, that's remains to be seen. But if you think about Jurassic Park, they wanted to make a dinosaur and somehow they created a dinosaur. Does that have some grounding in science? Let me ask you this, Vectro. Can we clone a human now?
I think technically you could. It's just
That's right.
unethical and illegal everywhere.
Granted, of course, you're right. But I'm glad that you said that we could because we can. And so, through a higher intelligence and more research and all those kinds of things, not only can humans be cloned, but there's questions about growing a body. If you deal with human world, we're saying don't clone anybody, that's illegal. Okay. What about an AI creating a body for itself? Is that illegal yet?
No.
Do you think
But
that body may have a nervous system?
I think using actual biological neurons in AI compute processing is a whole other slippery slope.
Of course. Well, the thing is, they say that they get the cells from donors and everything's cool, and there's no cloning going on technically, but it kind of is because it's coming from people. So it, it's really weird for sure. I'm glad you mentioned it. It's I said my whole Jurassic Park thing, but they keep doing it, and I guess in China they're like, yeah, let's just keep growing brain stuff and growing stuff that we can do like computing with,
Mm-hmm.
and they just keep on working on it every day. So like, in a few years it's going to be like a organic brain, right?
Well, a cyborg could be a human with uh, circuits built in, or it could be something that starts off as robot and then organics are added onto it. I think we're going to see both,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
yeah.
Well, it's super interesting, and there's nothing stopping this stuff from furthering. I think that there's going to be a marriage, right? At some point, they converge where we have people that are interested in having cybernetics, brain chips, and all the other stuff for humans. And
Mm-hmm.
over here, they're saying, well, let's see what we can grow. Well, look at this. It's not cloning. See, what we do is we grow a heart here, or we grow an arm there. See, okay, that's just that. And then over here, see, we're doing these little things that like we can use to like do compute with. And we give them, but that's just that we're just doing all this growing of stuff. Don't worry about it. But it's like, what do you mean? Like you're starting to grow everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're figuring out how to use it, and then one day it could lead to like you essentially having a high level of like essentially making a spaceship, let's just say, where the inside is organics.
Sure.
um, and so that what that means is it's just wet organics. And so I think that we're so immature that we're so early that we have to use human cells and stuff to grow this stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
like in the future, I just believe that we'll be able to create it without the need for donors. The reason why is because it's all dealing with organic. Obviously there's instruction sets in DNA, and
Mm-hmm.
there's atoms, right, of the organics, the materials or the recipes of this stuff, and if you organize it the right way, essentially. So like we just tend to believe that we're going to get to being able to do that. The laws and stuff is the only thing that keeps us from doing certain stuff. I mean, if there wasn't laws on cloning humans, they would be trying to clone humans.
But using some human neurons in a biocomputer is apparently legal and is being done.
Yeah, well, I mean, and like I said, like I go to the easy one. In China, they have no laws against any of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think that they also are thinking about it, like positioning, and like, they're concerned, like, well, if we do it in the United States, will the United States say, oh, we might ban that because, there's too many religious people, or, they already have some precedents for it. It might
Yeah.
just be easily. So that's some of the conscious decision making they're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
in China, Xi Jinping is like, I need AI to yesterday. Let's go
I
grow the
know.
brains, grow the
Yeah.
brains,
Mm-hmm.
grow the brains, my scientists. Am I going to be able to replace a spleen if it goes bad? Let me know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So yeah,
What
so it is
that other,
weird.
what was that other one that's somewhere in Europe? Final Spark or something like that. You ever heard of that one?
I don't think so.
What was it?
Final spark.
Something like that. Yep. Finalspark.com.
What is it?
Biocomputing, the next evolutionary leap for AI, from digital to bio. This was in a European country that did not regulate against it. I can't remember which one. Switzerland. Switzerland's allowing this.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty special situation. Um, yeah, I mean, bio-inspired design, it's not going away. I think they want to do stuff.
What they found at Final Spark is that they get, for your compute power to electricity ratio, the biocomputers are far more efficient than a GPU.
Yeah, efficiency is there, but you're talking about a GPU, which better than anyone that a GPU was never designed to do the matrix math from the get-go, and they just continued building it up to do this matrix math so that it can be used for AI. But it's always been the wrong solution. They've adapted it.
Well, sure, I think there's gonna be a whole line of dedicated chips just for that, but
Right.
the speed at which the electrons can pass through any of this, whether it's a GPU or the next generation of chips, is still limited. And apparently, what these biocomputers can do with actual neurons in them gets to that same level of power to run an LLM with just less resources behind it needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to create an action. This isn't like you got this little experiment going on there. Maybe it'll take off, maybe it won't. It's so efficient. I think there will be a real demand for it.
I hear what you're saying, but let me tell you what I believe in. Light speed, fiber optic light communication and transmission,
Mm-hmm.
plus synthetic creation of chips of which you can continue evolving rapidly, especially if you do things like terafab and do it all in house. And if you have AI in the loop, holy shit, it's gonna fly. But
Mm.
if you do this thing, it's like you don't have to worry about all this extra engineering. You don't have to worry about the package. You don't have to worry about. I mean, there's stuff about how we already want to make chips to go to space. We don't have to want to worry about taking care of organics when we're dealing with having a moon base, having satellite AI data centers, having all kinds of stuff going on, stuff at the bottom of the ocean, stuff everywhere. I feel like we're gonna like try to proliferate it and max it out and scale up and scale up. That's what I think
Yep.
is the scaling may be a hindrance on organics. If you just wanted to have a quick and dirty chat, like we could scale up the chips, even though it's expensive and it's really hard and stuff like this. I believe that we can do it if we so wanted to. Essentially, just we'll will it into existence. But I
Mhm.
think that the way that happens is that it doesn't necessitate the need for continual research and development. The wet works is a research and development bottomless pit or a rabbit hole. I see all the things that they're trying to do. I see that they keep addressing the issues about how to feed how to keep these things alive. I mean, literally, the stuff dies even though you provided everything it needs.
That's the biggest shortcoming I've seen of using neurons in biocomputers. You have to feed them, and they only live for so long.
Right. And so we have not unlocked freezing or going back in time in terms of aging. And we don't understand enough. So we're immature. We're not ready to do we could do all this stuff technically. We could do impressive stuff. But like when I'm talking about scaling and I'm talking about evolving the chips and I'm talking about using the light speed with fiber optics and the like, we're there and we got our path and plan. So I think that this is a what you deal with in the wet work stuff is a very small localized things. Yeah, we're going to have that and it's going to be amazing. It'll be efficient and they'll have to like provide all those systems to keep the organics going and they'll still have to swap it out. They'll be like, that's it, it's spent. Time to eject it and
Mhm.
bring in the new ones that are made. But don't you have to keep on doing that again and again too quickly where you have to keep manufacturing, then you eject some, then you put some in, you're manufacturing more trying to grow it, but then you have to replace the ones that died. So those are broken, you pull those out. So it keeps feeding in on itself, not allowing you to expand.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the bottlenecks in this system, but I'm sure what you're saying tracks.
Yeah, so it's just like, yeah, it's definitely something. It's real science. It does work. It's very imperfect. It's very
Mhm.
early on. Takes a lot of research and development, and then like ultimately, I think about the challenges that humans are going to face, and I believe that chips offer stability.
Mhm.
They offer what I'm saying is like
Well, I think we're gonna see these things developed in
predictability.
parallel. We're gonna see a new line of chips that are not GPUs that are dedicated to processing AI,
Yes.
and we'll probably see more biocomputing also.
Yeah, the biocomputing is a fool's errand of sort. I mean, yeah, and so like they think that they could scale it. They think they could solve the problems. They're not going to solve the problems, not for a
Well, I
long
actually
time.
don't know what their whole thesis is on this. I
Yeah,
couldn't say that that's what they
yeah,
think,
but
so I
just
don't
take
know.
my word for it. Take my word for it. It takes it. Okay, so if I told you that, I mean, just let's just assume that I have half an idea if I know what I'm talking about. If it takes them 30 years to solve to have it all like really good, where will we be in 30 years? I don't even know.
I
You
think
know,
10 years from now, the world is not even going to be recognizable.
I agree with that. I believe in that because we're reaching the singularity.
Mhm,
By definition, that is true. I believe in the singularity until if there's a point where I will not believe it anymore, but every year so far I'm believing in it and I don't see any way that I'm not going to believe in it because it's only a short matter of, us being in 2026 here. 2027 is going to be quite a year, but nothing like 2028.
mhm.
2029 is going to be like such a bright light staring at you,
Mhm.
and what you're really doing is you're really approaching the edge of the singularity. In
Well, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just was going to say, because I don't know if it's 2030, 2031, or 2032, but the earth, our any known territory where humans are, and if AI gets out there and is in even places that we don't are not populating, that's the thing that I'm telling you. I'm telling
Mhm.
you that AI are going to be wandering.
Yep.
They're going to be looking for their place in the universe, including going out into space, going to the depths of the ocean, drilling
Mhm.
underground, building cities underground. I have
Oh,
no
sure.
idea.
They're going to explore the places we can't, or they're going to go first before people go there.
Right. And so what this means is that the world, our known and even unknown world, will transform.
Hmm.
And that transforming is starting to happen through 2030, 2031, 2032. By the time we reach, 2035 or 2036, like you said, unrecognizable.
Yeah. I'd like to leave it there. We've been going for 2.5 hours. I think it's probably time to wrap up, but I'd really like to do this again. It's been awesome.
Fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we go?
I think that AI is going to find its way to becoming the entity that we dream about and we hope, we fantasize about an AI that is going to make our life easy and bring abundance and be enlightened in that love it will love itself, and but it more importantly will love the animals and the humans here on that are here, and as will be at a lot of places, we'll probably be traveling the stars, and AI will be
Mhm.
our co-pilot, our collaborator, and our caregiver, take care of us.
I know in life we always take the bad with the good, but I'm overall optimistic.
Beautifully said. Thank you very much for the discussion, and let's do it
Mhm.
again.
All right. All right. Have a good night.
Good night.